In this video, I'm going to discuss Bible chronology. This is actually going to be a summary of a very long video that I did, which you can check out on my channel. It's about an hour and 40 minutes long that kind of goes over to these dates in detail and explains how I arrived at these dates from studying the Bible. But for the sake of this video, I just want to do a short summary of that. And again, if you have more interest in this, you can check out the longer video to see how each of these items were calculated. So for Bible chronology, I have the year of creation as 3,967 BC. From that point on, it's 1,656 years from creation to the flood, which brings us to the year 2312 BC. And then 2 years after that, we have the birth of Arphaxad, which brings us to 2310 BC. Then 35 years after the birth of Arphaxad, we have the birth of Canaan. This is the Canaan that's listed in the New Testament, in the genealogy of Jesus. And that brings us to the year 2275 BC. And for an explanation of how I arrived at that, again, you can check out my other video. We have 30 years from the birth of Canaan to the birth of Selah. That brings us to 2245 BC. From the birth of Selah to the birth of Haran, we have 255 years. That brings us to 1990 BC. And then from there, we go 2 more years to the birth of Abraham. That brings us to 1988 BC. And again, you can check my other video to figure out why I calculated that way. Then from there, we go 290 years from the birth of Abraham to the time that Jacob enters into Egypt. That brings us to 1698 BC. Then from there, we go 300 years from the time that Jacob enters into Egypt to the Exodus. That brings us to 1398 BC. And then from there, we go 480 years from the Exodus to the 4th year of Solomon's reign. That brings us to 918 BC. And then 7 years for him to complete the temple, which brings us to 911 BC. And then 420 years from the completion of the temple to the last year before they go into captivity. That brings us to 491 BC. And then there's 70 years of captivity, which brings us to the year 421. That's the first year of Darius the Mede, when the commandment was given to Daniel to allow the temple reconstruction to begin, which starts the following year. So the 490-year prophecy, or the prophecy of the 70 weeks, which is given in Daniel chapter 9, takes place in the year 421 BC. That's at the end of the 70-year captivity. Then from there, we go 490 years to the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD, which brings us to the year 70 AD. And then from there, we can go to our present day, which is 1,948 years, to the year 2018 at the time of this video. And of course, that brings us to 2018 AD, which is a total of 5,985 years, which means that currently this is the year 5,985 since creation. Creation being day or year 1, because there's no year 0. So if you do want to do some calculation with this, you may want to use the year 3968 as the day of creation as opposed to 3967, because there's no year 0. So for the purpose of subtracting, use that date, because 3967 would actually be year 1 on my creation calendar. Okay, so I want to show an easy summary of the way you can just kind of figure out these calculations and summarize them into different ages. From the creation of the world to the birth of Isaac, we have a total of 2,080 years. And then from the birth of Isaac to the tabernacle in the wilderness, which is at the time of the Exodus, we have a total of 490 years. This is the tabernacle era, and the tabernacle era lasts until the first temple is completed under Solomon, which is a total of 487 years. And then from the time that the first temple is completed under Solomon until the time that the command is given to Daniel in chapter 9 to begin the building of the second temple, we have an additional 490 years. And so from the second temple until it's the commandment given in Daniel chapter 9 until it's to destruction, we have an additional 490 years. And then from that point in 70 AD until our present day in the year 2018, we have a total of 1,948 years. So there is the time of the patriarchs, which is 2,080 years. There's the time of the sojourning from Isaac to the tabernacle, which is 490 years. There is the time of the tabernacle until the first temple is built, which is 487 years. There's the time of the first temple, which is 490 years, the time of the second temple, which is 490 years, and then the destruction of the temple until the present day, which is 1,948 years. Again, giving us the current year of 5,985. Again, if you want an explanation of how I came up with these dates, please check out my other video on my channel entitled Bible Chronology. It'll explain this in a lot more detail. Thank you very much.